after we invaded Russia, I think you can hear from my voice, we are very excited. We were waiting for that for 2 years, and we're so happy it happened. You know, yes, we're losing right now some of our territories, but we showed the whole world that basically anyone can invade the territory of Russia if they want. It's not this so powerful country as they try to claim, and this really cheered up our spirit, and we still believe that we're going to win, and there is no any other option.
They carried out one of its biggest airstrikes on Ukraine of the war so far. It happened overnight. At least 6 people were killed, dozens wounded. Missiles and drones were fired into more than half of Ukraine's regions, cutting off power and water. Meanwhile, Ukraine's forces continue to occupy territory inside the Russian province of Kursk. But in Ukraine, Russian troops are on the brink of taking the key city of Pokrovsk. So what does it mean then for the people of Ukraine? I'm interested about this. How does it affect daily life, normal life? Are they resigned to many more years of war? Are they bored of it? I thought I'd find out with Alyona Kildishova, who's a Ukrainian who now lives in the UK but has recently just made a visit back to her homeland. Really great to have you on, Alyona. Thanks so much for doing this. When were you in Kyiv then? Because it wasn't that long ago, was it?
Good evening, Martin. Yes, I've just returned a couple of days ago back to the UK, so I've just been to Kiev.
And sum up life there then at the moment. Sum up everyday life. What happens on day to day for Ukrainians?
So, if I talk about the period of time when I was there, it was a week when we had perfectly normal, peaceful, silent life. Let's phrase it like that. Of course, there were air raid sirens, but there were no explosions. There was no any massive attacks. So the life was all right. Of course, we have like curfew, so we can't go out after 12 a.m. So at night we have to stay at home, and there are a couple of more regulations. But if we talk about today, it's like a good reminder that the war is not over. Today was completely different experience from what I had just like a week ago. So, as you already said, there was probably the most massive attack which we had before, like over 120 missiles and 100 drones were sent to the whole territory of Ukraine. And to tell the truth, it's still not over. Just while we are talking, there are new explosions in Kiev. Just like an hour ago, Kryvyi Rih was attacked and the missile hit the hotel. So again, people died. There is no I don't know yet the numbers of how many people were killed, but I just saw the photos and it's just terrible. So yeah, if we talk about how the usual life was affected, so for example, my parents, first of all, they woke up because of explosions. They were really scared. And of course, the electricity gone straight away because the energy sector was a target, as usual, by Russians. So my parents spent like around 16 hours without electricity supply, without water. And to tell the truth, I hardly managed to communicate with them, just make sure they're all right. And then there is no connection. So right now, I have no idea how are my parents, but this is just awful. What is going on?
And this is the threat that exists all the time for Ukrainians, day after day, in Kyiv and in other cities across the country. So, how does normal life carry on? What does that normal life even look like? I mean, do people get in their cars and drive somewhere? Can you go to the cinema? If you do, are you worried that it might be hit at any time? What does it feel like to try and live normally?
So yeah, it's quite challenging because, for example, if we go back to an example with the cinema, yes, of course you can go to the cinema, but if there is an air siren raid, so it means that the cinema will be closed any moment. It doesn't matter you started watching the film, you're in the middle, or you're at the very end. You will be just asked to leave and to go to the shelter, and there is a big possibility that you won't finish watching that film that day. So the same situation with supermarkets, with post offices. For example, you're coming to a supermarket. Here we are, siren rate, so you have to leave, and you can be left without food, for example. So that's how normal life, if we can say so, looks like right now in Ukraine.
And what about news of the war? The day after day after day, incremental updates. I know Volodymyr Zelensky does a nightly address every night. How engaged are the Ukrainian population in the minutiae of what is happening in their country? I just wonder, like any news story, no matter how big it is, no matter how much it's affecting your life, do some people just get bored of it and just sort of turn off to it, switch off to it?
Um, it's quite difficult to say. You probably heard about such messenger like Telegram.
Hmm.
It became
Yeah,
quite popular
the social media.
recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's extremely massive in Ukraine, and we have a lot of news like channels broadcasting the news all the time on Telegram. Basically, every city has its own Telegram, so that's where people find out all the information like in real time. So, for example, I have all these chats on my Telegram, and I receive all the notification during the day. So I'm up to date with all the information, what is going on in Ukraine. The same with all my friends, with all my family members, with everyone who I know. People basically up to date with all the news. It's vital to know what is going on, like even with the missiles attack, the right information saying, like, for example, okay, there can be a threat, there can be air siren raid, like, soon. So just know about this.
I'm interested to know the Ukrainian, and I know that obviously Ukraine is a very big country and people will have all sorts of different opinions, but just the feeling that you were able to gauge when you were there on the mood in Ukraine at the moment when it comes to the war. How are people feeling about how it's going?
So, after we invaded Russia, I think you can hear from my voice, we are very excited. We were waiting for that for 2 years, and we're so happy it happened. You know, yes, we're losing right now some of our territories, but we showed the whole world that basically anyone can invade the territory of Russia if they want. It's not this so powerful country as they try to claim, and this really cheered up our spirit, and we still believe that we're going to win, and there is no any other option. And it feels like Putin thinks that with all this attack, with all these missiles sent to our like energetic sector, yeah, and putting people in complete blackout, he probably thinks that he will motivate Ukrainians to go on a strike and to say, oh, let's stop the war, let's finish. No, he does completely different thing. He makes us every day hate Russians even more than before, and he makes us like feel that we have to win, that there is no any other way of finishing this war.
So, Ukrainians, I'm guessing from what you're saying there, if there were to be some sort of negotiation, some sort of deal done to have a ceasefire that meant Ukraine had to give up some of its territory, how would that go down with Ukrainians?
Um, so look, my native like town, yeah, where I was born, Mariupol, is now an occupied territory. So in this type of negotiations, they, for example, say, "Oh, all right, we stop the war, but Mariupol will never return to Ukraine." So for me, it's like someone is coming to my flat, taking the keys, and saying to me, "You do not live here anymore." Why? Because I decided like that. It's not an option for Ukrainians. Absolutely not. All these peaceful negotiations, let's be fair, its negotiations towards which side? Towards Russian side or towards Ukrainian side? When we talk about losing the territories, our territories, it means that it all goes in favor to Russia. But look, it's not fair. This country invaded our country. They killed so many people already. It means that all these uh, deaths, all this horror which we experienced during the last 2.5 years, it didn't have any sense, any reason.
Yeah.
So,
Alyona, thank you so much for taking the time to kind of talk me through that. Really interesting to hear the thoughts of the mood of Ukraine at the moment, and then just sort of what everyday life is like as well. Thank you so much. Alyona Kildishova, a Ukrainian who now lives in the UK, but as you heard, has recently made a visit back to Kyiv, which is where her family are.